Today, a good modern hardtail mountain bike could be a quiver killer for some riders. For commuting and urban assault, hardtails still offer efficient pedaling that no full suspension mountain bike can match. With modern geometry and components, they can also be extremely capable in the dirt, especially on smoother flow trails. For other riders, a modern hardtail is the ultimate second bike, protecting their high-end full suspension bikes from wet trail conditions or unnecessary miles of wear. The Salsa Timberjack has had a reputation for some time now as a great all-around hardtail trail bike, last updated in 2021 with longer, lower, and slacker geometry. The latest version of the Timberjack received a number of extremely positive reviews. Pink Bike tested the XT29 version, praising its willingness to climb and even greater capability to descend, declaring it a great all-around trail bike. The same year and model was reviewed by the Hardtail aficionados at Hardtail Party, a leading publication specializing in testing hardtail mountain bikes. They tested the bike in both 29 and 27.5 wheel and tire setups as it's offered from Salsa, and as a mixed wheel mullet setup with a 29 up front and a 27.5 out back. They praised the updated Timberjack for its improved playfulness and capability. Both publications' criticism of the bike were minor critiques of its Rock Shox RL Gold fork. We highly recommend checking out both publications' tests. Inspired by these reviews, we decided to put our full suspension snobbery aside and throw a leg over the latest version of the Timberjack XT for ourselves. Currently riding a Salsa Blackthorn XTR long travel full suspension 29er trail bike, we set our eyes on the 29-inch version of the Salsa Timberjack XT. With that, we paid a visit to our local Salsa dealer, Reeser Bicycle Outfitters, located in Newport, Kentucky, to see if we could get our hands on a Salsa Timberjack XT29.
Hey, welcome to Reeser Bicycle Outfitters.
Hey Gabe, how's it going, man?
Good, Joe.
Do you have any Salsa Timberjack XTs on the floor?
We got some Timberjacks. I think we have a Z2 that's going to be a little upgraded, a full XT drivetrain and a Z2 fork on it. You want to check that one out?
Yeah, it's a little bit more, but let's check it out.
That'll be worth it. Let's go. All right, Joe. Here we have the Z2 Timberjack. It's a little bit above the XT Timberjack. By that, I mean it has a few more XT bits on it than SLX. It does still have an SLX crank and brakes, but everything else on here is XT. So very solid bike. A little bit of an upgrade to the XT, but the big upgrade between these two bikes is the fork up here. This is a Marzocchi Bomber. It's a Rock Shox on the other one. So this fork alone is worth about $400 between the price of the bikes. So it's almost like the drivetrain's kind of a bonus there.
Well, let me ask you, because I know you wouldn't steer me wrong. If it was your money, would you just spend the extra $400 and start with this bike?
100%. Anytime you can upgrade with a new purchase, you're going to get more bang for your buck because of the quantities that the manufacturer works with. You're not going to be able to build an XT up for $400 and hit this bike out.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah, no-brainer. Let's go.
All right, let's ring it up.
All right. There you go. She's yours.
Thanks, sir. Let's load her up.
Enjoy it.
Timberjack XT-Z2 components. Available in SLX, XT, and XT-Z2 builds with 27.5 plus or 29-inch wheels. Comparing our XT-Z2 to the standard XT build others tested, Salsa packed in a lot of added value for the Z2's $400 higher retail price. While the XT version is highlighted with an XT derailleur as its only XT component, the XT-Z2 enjoys a higher build spec throughout the drivetrain and brakes in addition to the Marzocchi fork. Starting with the drivetrain, the XT-Z2 features a Shimano DRXT 12-speed shifter derailleur and 10 to 51 tooth cassette, providing the feel and performance of a true XT drivetrain. The Z2's cranks are upgraded from Shimano MT510 to SLX with 170mm crank arms on the size large frame, with a 30-tooth chainring and SLX chain transferring power from front to rear. Timberjacks feature a threaded bottom bracket for easier maintenance. The 4-piston brakes are also upgraded on the Z2, to a higher-end SLX lever and caliper setup with 180mm rotors found at both ends, compared to a 180mm front and 160mm rotor rear on lower models. The SLX levers benefit from a quick adjust reach knob similar to Shimano's XT and XTR brakes. The same wheels are used across the Timberjack line with 30mm internal width WTB aluminum rims laced to a boost space Shimano MT400 15x110 hub front and MT410 12x148 hub rear. Tire spec are tubeless ready Maxxis 29x2.6 DHF front and a 29x2.6 Recon rear in their lightweight EXO casing. The cockpit is comprised of an FSA Orbit headset topped with a 50mm Salsa guide trail stem, mated to a race-faced Chester 35x780mm wide alloy handlebar wrapped in Salsa file tread grips. A travel adjustable Trans-X dropper post comes set up with 170mm of drop on the size large. It's actuated by a Shimano MT500 lever. The seat post is topped with a WTB Volt saddle. The 44mm offset 130mm travel Marzocchi Z2 fork is built on a 34mm chassis. The air-sprung fork allows you to add or remove internal volume spacers to fine-tune progressivity. Externally, the fork features low-speed compression and rebound damping adjustments. The compression knob is non-indexed and the rebound knob is. Frame design and geometry. The Timberjack Alloy V2 frame is very versatile. It's constructed of 6061 T6 aluminum tubing with double and triple butted tubing in the main triangle to maximize strength and reduce weight. Spec'd with a 130mm travel fork, the Timberjack frame is rated to accommodate up to a 150mm travel fork for those wanting their Timberjack to lean a little more toward enduro than general trail use. The frame will accommodate 27.5-inch tires up to a 2.8-inch diameter and 29-inch tires up to 2.6 inches. The frame is equipped with mounts and plenty of room for 2 full-size water bottles inside the main triangle. Internal cable routing provides a clean look, measured at 25% sag with a 130mm travel fork. The head tube angle is 66.4 degrees with a relatively modern 75.1 degree seat tube angle. Unsagged, the way most manufacturers commonly measure geometry, the Timberjack's geometry more clearly displays its modern design with a 75-degree head tube angle. The size large features a 475.5mm reach, 613.5mm stack, and 772.1mm standover. The alternator 2.0 dropouts are 2-position adjustable, affecting chainstay length. Our 29-inch version came in the longer setting, with relatively short 437mm chainstays. The other position is 17mm shorter at 420mm. Salsa also offers their alternator variable adjust dropouts, featuring a slide adjustment that allows you to fine-tune chain tension for single-speed setups. In the longer 437mm chainstay length, the large Timberjack features a pretty long 1,197.5mm wheelbase with its longer front center and 56.6mm of bottom bracket drop. The test. Our review was comprised over 3 days of filming with a number of rides in between. Day 1 was muddy, so we hit the pavement for a little urban assault mission. Stepping aboard, the Timberjack welcomes you with a spacious, pretty well laid out cockpit. Stepping on the gas for the first time, you're reminded just how quickly and efficiently an aluminum hardtail builds speed. The Marzocchi fork offers a decent amount of low-speed compression damping inherently, which helps resist excessive bobbing when you're out of the saddle. In this moment, we were very happy that Salsa didn't spec the bike with Maxxis softer max grip rubber compound, which rolls slower and wears much faster on asphalt. Shifting through the gears, the drivetrain provided the quick, precise shifting and solid feeling through the shifter that the RXT is known and loved for. Diving off and back onto the street, the frame provided us with our first feeling of its well-balanced geometry, feeling stable yet responsive. Hitting the schoolyard with the chainstays in the long setting, The front end was easy to keep light, popping off a small drop onto a grassy hillside. Back on the pavement, we headed toward the stairs. Going down, it feels like there's plenty of bike in front of you, keeping the back end planted. The fork did well at muting the square edges of the steps, aided by the large diameter of the 29-inch wheels and beefy 2.6-inch tires, which made climbing the stairs nearly as easy as descending. The Timberjack seemed as stable and predictable at low-speed maneuvers and track stands as it did at higher speeds, leaving us coming away from our first ride feeling that the V2 frame geometry performed well all around, but we hadn't hit the trail yet. About the only thing that wasn't that impressive on our first ride were the brakes, but they hadn't fully broken in yet. For our next ride, we hit the tight, twisty, and relatively flat trails of Terrell Park in Milford, Ohio, continuing to impress with its efficient speed on the flats. The Timberjack proved to be one of the best cornering 29ers we've ridden on tighter trails. The Timberjack changes direction with a level of eagerness we once thought reserved for bikes with smaller wheels. It corners quickly and is happy to lean over for turns, bermed or flat. It's great in tight turns, riding casually, or pushing the limits. The Maxxis DHF and Recon tire combination provided predictable grip in Terrell's intermediate speed turns, and were fast rolling down the straights in the drier conditions in which we tested. We settled on 22 pounds front and 24 pounds rear for our 200-pound rider, providing a good balance of traction, protection, and compliance with a stiff aluminum chassis. While the Timberjack is on the stiff side, getting started on old-school fat tube aluminum mountain bikes in the 90s, we felt right at home with the stiffer ride, although the modern geometry is night and day better. On the small drops and jumps at Terrell Park, it was easy to lighten the front end. We could still make the front end lighter and the bike even faster turning by swapping out the dropouts to their shorter chainstay settings, but we preferred the added stability and minute improvement in ride quality that having the rear axle a little further away provides. When it came to getting airborne, the Timberjack seemed happy to pop off anything we wanted, from purpose-built jumps to well-positioned rocks or roots. The fork never bottomed from our modest jumps, and it did well at taking the edge off small root gardens while keeping the front tire tracking predictably. Overall, the Timberjack made the flatter, twistier trails at Terrell Park a lot of fun to ride. For our final test day, we headed to the steep uphills and fast flowy jump-filled downhills of the Sleepy Hollow Trail in DeVue Park in Covington, Kentucky. On the long rocky climb up to the trail, the Timberjack did well rolling through the rocks, with the Marzocchi fork eating up the harsh edges. After a brief descent, Sleepy Hollow turns upwards in a big way. With a modestly low stack height and relatively steep C-tube, the Timberjack's front end remains predictably planted on climbs, only forcing you to stand up on the steepest sections to keep the front end planted. No power loss from a rear shock helped get the power to the ground more efficiently, as long as we chose smoother lines. The well-balanced geometry allows you to be precise at low climbing speeds. When the trail turned downward, the Timberjack remained very well-mannered. High-speed cornering is natural and predictable. High-speed stability is good on downhills, in spite of being well-mannered on climbs. Jumping manners are good, allowing you to get playful in the air. On landings, the fork never seemed to bottom. Test rider Greg Davis stated that he'd prefer a slightly taller bar for hitting high-speed jump lines, although it might detract a bit from the bike's climbing prowess without a slightly steeper C-tube to balance it out. By the time we reached DeVue Park, the brakes were broken in, providing braking power and feel that seemed on par with Shimano XT or XTR, allowing us to tackle the downs with confidence. Traction wasn't an issue in the dry conditions. Perhaps we could have pushed a little harder with a Maxxis DHF out back and their tougher Exo Plus casing and max grip rubber compound at both ends. However, the lighter, harder compound tires were fast rolling and should prove to be longer lasting for those who like to ride pavement from time to time. So we actually add points for the tire choice. On the rocky, fast lower sections of the trail, the Marzocchi Z2 fork was well-mannered and rigid enough that it kept us feeling comfortable charging. Coasting back down the rocky trail to the parking lot, we wrapped up a half dozen rides with no dings in the rims or component failures to report. Our only gripe was a little annoying creaking from the dropper post, which we'll remedy soon. Conclusion. After a half dozen rides, we feel the Salsa Timberjack lives up to the hype. It's a competent climber, confident descender, and one of the best turning, most playful 29ers we've ridden. Although Greg felt he'd prefer a 27.5 wheel equipped version for maximum dirt jump appeal. The Z2's component spec leaves little to be desired in the way of upgrades, unless you're just dying to add a set of bougie wheels. For a $500 fork, the Marzocchi Z2 provided good all-around performance, which made it a good match for what the Timberjack is. It's not an XC racer or enduro hardtail. The Salsa Timberjack is a great all-around hardtail trail bike. Learn more about the Salsa Timberjack and their full line of spicy bikes at salsacycles.com.